Welcome to Yakar's Parasha podcast. This week it's Parashat Bo. I want to discuss with you what is the first mitzvah that Am Yisrael were commanded to do in Egypt. And then I want to discuss with you addiction. So the first mitzvah is clearly Korban Pesach. That's the first mitzvah that we know. In fact, if you look at the Midrash, Rashi follows this idea. It's clear that this is a rebellion against the gods of Egypt. The sheep was considered holy. We take the sheep 4 days before, it makes a lot of noise, then we shecht it, put blood all over the doors so that it's clear to all the Egyptians exactly who did it, and if that's not good enough, we roast it so everybody can smell it from a mile far, and then we eat it. There's nothing worse than devouring the gods. This is Rebellion 101, the moment where Am Yisrael needs to rebel and throw off slavery and smash the idols of their enslavers. Probably the idea that Avraham smashed the idols in his father's shop is probably based on this idea. That clearly is the first mitzvah. However, if you look in Chazal, you'll find that they have other ideas. For example, there is a Yerushalmi based on the pasuk from last week in Parashat Va'era, where God says to Moshe, commanding Moshe about Pharaoh to let the Jewish people out, and also commanding Moshe about the Jewish people. What has he got to command them to do? The Yerushalmi says that the Jewish people needed to release their own slaves before they could be redeemed. In other words, every society, even enslaved societies, have different hierarchies. In order to be freed, we need to free others. But actually I want to talk about addiction. The first mitzvah that we're commanded to do according to Chazal might be Rosh Chodesh, because the pasuk that commands us to do the Korban Pesach starts with Chodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodeshim. Chazal understand that to mean that God empowered us, God empowered us to define, to decide whether Rosh Chodesh would be 29 days or 30 days, and whether we would have a leap year every time. So that Chazal now, the rabbis, and people by giving testimony of the new moon, actually are deciding exactly when the calendar works out. Chazal understand this to mean, to a certain extent, that we have the responsibility, the zchut, and the responsibility to decide when you're going to have Chagim. This means that we are actually defining time. You have a date, but we decide when that date falls out. The Gemara understands this to mean that Shabbat has a kedusha which is kavua, fixed, permanent, but the holiness of Yom Tov is, if you like, more flexible, more fluid. It's dependent on human beings. What does this really mean? What I think this really means is that in order to be free, you have to be able not just to control time, but to make holiness of time, to make time holy. A slave does not control his time. He's told what to do in his time. But we, due to our addiction to YouTube and to every single algorithm that we have, we are enslaved. How much does the app decide for us what we're now next going to see, what we're now next going to do? We think we're very free, but we all know that actually we're working within echo rooms of what we have seen before, of our opinions from the past. So in fact, we're far more enslaved than the average slave. When was the last time we created holiness in time? The Yerushalmi says that this idea of God giving over to us time, giving over to us the responsibility to decide when is Rosh Chodesh, and also then to decide when is Rosh Hashanah, right? Rosh Hashanah is dependent on us. Our own judgment day is a day that we decide for God. This, according to the Yerushalmi, can be compared to a king giving over to his son his signet ring, the signing. But the last idea in the Yerushalmi is magnificent. It says this is comparable to a doctor giving over to his student his bag of medicines. To give the Jewish people, to give us, Bethlehem, responsibility of time is to be giving us a medicine. It's for us to be doctors. We normally think that we kill time. That's the expression. In reality, we know that time kills us. Here is a binary opposite, a clash of titans between human beings and time. But the solution is creating holiness of time. It's almost, again, not breaking routine, but creating holiness within routine. That is bringing a refuah, a healing to the world. Shabbat Shalom.